How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. I'm Kent, and today I'm testing out a polyester string that was actually only the second polyester that I ever used. And this string has a special place in my heart because this string was actually the one string that I started to kind of experiment with and kind of got me into trying other strings. Before I got into testing stuff, I used mostly Technifiber biphase multi-filament, and after that 𝐤𝐤𝐿. But the string that I'm testing today is the Luxilon 4G. Let's check it out. So the Luxilon 4G is a string that I decided to test because of the marketing for this string. As you can see on the package, it says maximum tension maintenance, and that's what the 4G is known for. Usually strings that hold tension very well are on the stiffer side, but this string is actually pretty soft and comfortable. It doesn't come with that discomfort and arm pain that a lot of good tension stability strings come with, but it also doesn't sacrifice the control. And it has been a very long time since I tried this. The reason why I decided to try it, well, there are two reasons. Number one was because the first polyester that I ever used was Luxilon's 𝐤𝐤𝐿, but I noticed before I even knew anything, even I knew what tension maintenance even was, I noticed that 𝐤𝐤𝐿 was dropping in playability very quickly. I noticed huge discrepancies between play sessions with my playstyle. I thought I was just having an off day or something, but it just kept repeating itself. And then I learned after doing some research that tension stability was a thing, and I realized that 𝐤𝐤𝐿 has a very sharp decline, and that's why I looked into the same brand and I found the 4G, which is known to maintain tension very well. The second reason I decided to try this was because at the time, this string was being used by one of my favorite ATP players of all time, Kei Nishikori. He used to string the 4G with the Wilson Natural Gut in a hybrid. He has since switched to Luxilon Element, and I believe that is what he still uses with the Wilson Natural Gut. And according to Luxilon's website, also Stefanos Tsitsipas and Grigor Dimitrov also use this string, although I don't know when that site was updated, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So one set of the 4G is going to cost about $20, so it's the same price as the 𝐤𝐿, and it comes in two gauges, 130 and 125 millimeters. I'm testing the 125 because that's really the thickest that I want. I like thinner gauge strings. I wish they had a thinner one, but 125 is pretty good. This string also comes in the standard gold color, which you've probably seen. I'm testing it out in this like special edition desert bronze color that they recently released, and there's also a black edition. I'm not planning to try the black because black tends to play pretty dead, and from what I remember way back many years ago when I used to use 4G, this is not one of the more crisp, lively playing strings, so I don't want to make it even deader by trying out the black one. There is also a 4G rough and a 4G soft if you guys are interested as well. But I'm testing out the standard 4G 125, and I'm testing it in the desert bronze color. And I am trying it out in my brand new Speed Pro, the Speed Legend colorway. And I got it strung at 52 pounds, both mains and crosses. So obviously I'm going to play with this a few sessions to see if it maintains that tension stability. It has been about 5 years since I last used this string, so we'll see if it still conforms to my play style with my serve and volley and aggressive baseline game. So without further ado, let's jump on the court and let's test out the 4G Desert Bronze. But before that, if you guys like this content and want to see more, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button to keep the reviews coming. So let's start with the pros of the Luxilon 4G. Let's first address the big marketing point of this string, the tension maintenance. Is it as good as it claims? Well, yes, it does maintain tension very well, but there is an initial drop at the beginning. Thankfully, it is only a small drop off and not a cliff like the 𝐤𝐿. The strings settle in and they become much more playable in terms of power, control, and pocketing. This string is unique in that it holds tension well even in lower tensions. Usually when you string at a lower tension, the strings will stretch very easily and you'll end up with a very springy string bed. This isn't the case with the 4G, so for people who like to string down in the 40s, 4G can last a while without becoming an uncontrollable trampoline. It's also a smooth, round poly, so it has great durability, so if you're looking for a long-lasting playable string, the 4G is an option for you. Next pro is the pocketing. The 4G really opens up and becomes very playable after the break-in, and there is a lot of pocketing. Unlike a sharp string like the Ultra Cable, which I just reviewed, the 4G doesn't rely on insane spin to keep the ball inside the lines. It also doesn't rely on a muted and dead string bed like the RPM or 𝐤𝐸𝐿one for control either. What I feel from the 4G is that the pocketing creates better directional and depth control for aggressive ground strokes by sinking into the string bed, and it allows the user to freely direct the ball in their desired direction. The 4G pockets the ball so much that it feels as if the ball sits on the strings longer than the average string. This causes the ball to lose some of its kinetic energy and results in better control because the ball is less likely to fly long. I really like the 4G on my return of serve. I like to step in front of the baseline and take returns early, and the 4G complemented this style very well. The pocketing gave me a good feel for how deep or wide I wanted to hit the return, and the control kept most of my returns from flying long. I especially liked the 4G on my backhand return because my short swing allowed me to redirect the return cross court easily. The pocketing also helped on my volley game as well because it kept my aggressive volleys inside the baseline, and I also could redirect the volleys left and right with ease. As I mentioned earlier, the 4G provides good ball pocketing which allows me to redirect volleys easily. Also, although I wouldn't classify it as a power string, the 4G assisted with low volleys, transition volleys, and reflex volleys. I didn't have to swing that hard to get the ball across the net, and this was important for the transition volley. Since I am mostly a serve and volleyer, I want that extra pop so I can hit that transition approach volley deep without too much effort. Overheads also had decent pop and power when I struck the sweet spot cleanly. As the strings settled in, there was a slight boost in power, but nothing that caused the string bed to become erratic. The tension stays stable and my volleys also became better as I locked into how the string played. The 4G's tension maintenance was on full display at the net, and if you're a serve and volleyer that wants something durable and has long-lasting playability, the 4G would be a good choice. The 4G also has a comfortably firm response, similar to many other round polys I've tried recently like the 𝐥𝐸𝐿 Outlast, Technifiber Razor Code, and the ReString Sync. I still wouldn't recommend this string to someone who has a sensitive elbow, but if you have a healthy arm and sound mechanics, the 4G probably won't be the reason you hurt your arm. The 4G also provides a decent amount of power and pop. It gave me a decent boost when I took a full swing and my shots had good court penetration. My flat serve had some decent pace and I never felt like I couldn't generate pace even in my 1820 Speed Pro. My two-handed backhand usually has a noticeable difference in power with my Speed Pro and its tight pattern, but the 4G did its best to assist me with depth and pace. I wouldn't classify the 4G as a power poly. In fact, if you string it higher than 52, I think the string will play rather firm and dead, so if you want more of a boardy feel, I would recommend a higher tension. The 4G will hold it. All in all, the 4G does maintain tension very well and is also very durable, so if you're the type of player who doesn't want to keep restringing their racket or is sensitive to tension loss, there are a few options out there better than the 4G. It also provides a decent balance between power and control and doesn't get too mushy. For me, 52 pounds in my Speed Pro was a good tension as I've used this string before and I wouldn't do anything differently. However, there were a few areas I struggled with. So let's get into the cons of the Luxilon 4G. For me, the biggest con with this string is the lack of spin potential. It's a bit unfair to compare this to the likes of Lynx Tour, Tour Bite, Quadro Twist, and all of the other shaped strings I like, but even for a round poly, I wouldn't say 4G has the best spin generation. It isn't the worst either, and if you swing fast and vertical, you can definitely get some decent rotation, especially since the strings pocket the ball so well. But for me, I need more spin on my kick serve, and the 4G did not quite give me enough diving action and high bouncing kick. Thankfully, it didn't make my kick serve a liability, and I'll say again that this wasn't the worst spin generation I've seen, it just didn't have quite enough for me. Second, I struggled to hit consistent slices with the 4G. It seemed to have an unusually high launch angle even with my Speed Pro, and I had a hard time keeping defensive slices away from the opposing net player. I also didn't feel quite comfortable putting my weight into an offensive slice because I had a tendency to sail those long. I sometimes like to mix in a chip and charge return to keep my opponent guessing, but I couldn't reliably do that. The 4G had some decent dwell time, so I think that might be what is causing my slices to float up. And lastly, the 4G is a pretty muted string without much feel for hitting drop shots, angle volleys, or even placement shots from the baseline. Those who have been watching my channel for a long time know that I like crisp polys, and the 4G is nowhere near as crisp as Alu Power. I struggled to hit drop shots off the bounce, and I dumped a lot of touch shots into the net because I couldn't gauge my strength very well. I also had a tough time on half volleys or pickup volleys at my feet. If I can get clean contact with a crisp and responsive string, I'm able to dig those back low and away from the net player, but my half volleys with the 4G felt uncomfortable and I popped up most of them. The 4G, strangely enough though, is a pretty lively string. Because of the pocketing, I can feel the ball coming off the string bed faster, so it's not a completely muted and dead string, it just doesn't have the response to my hand and arm that I want for my finesse game. So the 4G lacks the spin and feel of some of my favorite polys, and this is the reason why I decided to switch away from it many years ago. It's also $20, and for someone like me who doesn't care much about durability and tension maintenance, the 4G just doesn't provide enough in the other departments for me to put it in my top 10. So then, who is the Luxilon 4G for? This is pretty obvious. It's for players who prioritize durability and tension maintenance and want something long-lasting. In terms of playstyle, I think the 4G suits flatter hitters who want something with some liveliness to provide court penetration, but also decent enough depth and directional control to take command of a point. The 4G also provides good defensive help with its lively string bed as well. The 4G's tension should hold up to even the most big hitting ground strokers out there. So this was a nice nostalgic playtest for me, as it's been over 5 years since I last used this string, but going back to it made me realize just how much I've changed as a player. I'm actually curious to try the 4G Rough now, because I think that string might provide more spin and power and perhaps a more responsive string bed. This playtest made me curious. I'm also curious to hear your thoughts about the 4G or the Rough, so please chime in with your comments about this string down below, and I'll see you in the next review. Thank you for watching this review of the Luxilon 4G right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.